The Transportation and Commerce Committee meeting will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Present.
Alderman Narayan. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Present.
Chair Cohn.
Present.
Alderman Narayan. We have 3 present. We have quorum.
Madam Clerk, Alderman Narayan was signed earlier.
That was me.
No, he texted saying that he was signed in earlier, but because we didn't have the internet up and running, he logged off.
Okay, let me see.
And was supposed to log back in, so if you could follow up with him.
Let me see if he's still on there.
My apologies, we got a little bit of a delayed start this morning. The internet at City Hall is acting up a bit, so thank you for your patience as we got everything back online. We have several board bills that are before us this morning. And what I would like to do after we approve the meeting minutes, we'll go ahead and go a little out of order. I'm going to have Metro present on their board bills that are before us this morning. We'll take questions on those. And then after that, I'll hear Board Bill 17 and Board Bill 25 that are both related to the airport. Oh, okay, thank you. Sounds good. We will not be approving the meeting minutes this morning. So with that, we'll continue on with our normal order of business then, and we'll go ahead and move forward. If everyone is okay, we'll just bring all 3 board bills before us related to Metro. They're all essentially related to our annual appropriations, for Metro. And
Sorry, Mr. Cohn, we're trying to get Narayan back on.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. And Alderman Narayan is with us. If you all would like to introduce yourselves.
Thank you, Chairman Cohn. My name is Talby Roach. I'm the President and CEO of Aviation Code. And here with me.
Oh, is the microphone on, Talby?
It's a green light now, so I think good. Good morning, everyone. My name is Talby Roach. I'm the President and CEO of Bi-State Development. We run many different ventures, including Metro Transit. That's what we're here to talk about today. To my left is Tammy Fulbright, my CFO. She will be doing the majority of the presentation today. But if I may, Mr. Chairman, I will ask my 2 COOs to stand up. Yeah, that's right, I have 2, because Mr. Chuck Stewart's last month is this month. So I have to his right Mr. Ron Forrest, who comes from Minneapolis and many other places, a very thick transit resume. Very looking forward to that new era. And so I wanted to just be sure to introduce these gentlemen to the members of the committee. But we are before you today to consider bills 35, 30, 37. Always because of the idiosyncrasies of how the taxing elements work, we have to do 3 separate bills there. And you have our normal operating and capital budget. I will ask Tammy Paris to take over that, to take that presentation, but could I ask you to advance to the next slide? And I ask for this slide because this is my favorite slide, because in any public organization, key is being sure that we are consistent with where tax revenue is, right? That our operating revenue is consistent with tax revenue. And indeed, we've been able to do that. Over the last 7 years, we have an average growth of 1.64%. This is consistent with how the tax revenue is growing across the whole entire region. And we have to be sure to adhere to this very simple principle. Be sure that we are providing public service, but live within our means. We are dedicated to that at Metro Transit, and that's why I love this slide, because it's not just 1 year. Everybody can make their budget in 1 year. What we like is that we've done it 7 years and we're showing that trend. So that requires a lot of hard work, hard decisions as well. We cannot be everything to everybody, but what we want to do is be the most efficient. The same kind of difficult decisions that you all make every single day. We're in this game with you, and we hope that we accomplish it. So with that, I'll give you Ms. Paris.
Thank you. Good morning. So if we could advance to the next slide. Thank you. So this next slide is really a look at both the 25 and 26 budget. We do have our actuals in here for 24, but it's really just giving that comparison so you can kind of see where we have changed from 25 to 26. So starting out with revenue, passenger revenue, you can see that we are in 26 at 19.5 million, a little bit down, about 2.3 million down from 25. And as if you look over at the left-hand column at that actual, you'll see we're budgeting closer to where we ended up in 24. We are very optimistic about where this will go in the future, but we just want to be realistic for the budget for 26. Going into the next line item, the grant, sales tax, and contractual revenue, this is the big line item. So this line item consists of our sales tax, both St. Louis City and St. Louis County, and it also includes our negotiated contract with St. Clair County, as well as federal vehicle maintenance and some state funding that we get. So you can see that we're up from 25, about $8 million. $4 million of that's really related to some additional state tax that we've gotten in, state fund we've gotten in, I apologize. And then also the $4 million for sales tax that we're asking for in the 26 budget year, both from the city and the county, and some contractual revenue from St. Clair County. Interest income, you can see that we're down about 10.3 million from the previous budget. This is related to two different things. One basically is the rates, the Fed rates on our investment, our actual capital funding. So that's part of it. The other part of it is really the reason for the decrease is that we're really moving along on a lot of our projects, and so we don't have as much cash to earn on. So that's why you're seeing a decrease of about 10.3 million. The final line item under revenue other is really advertising, rental, paratransit, different kinds of revenue items that we get in there, some pass-through grants. And we also have a capital lease that is ending this year, and that is included in that line item. So where you see the comparison between 25 and 26 going down 8.5 million, that's really just related to that lease. So in total for 26, we have revenue of 344.2 million approximately. Moving on into expenses, the first line item, our biggest one, which represents about a little over 60% of our budget, is wages and benefits, and you can see that we're up about 6 million there. That's primarily due to some adjustments that we made in our union contract and workers' comp and medical expenses that we've had some increases there. The next line item, services, you can see we're up about 3 million. So what we're seeing here is that this is related to our security, but it's also related to increases in labor on some of our other contracts. So we're seeing increases there. So one example might be our cleaning contracts. So because the cost for labor is more expensive, it's causing that line item to go up too. The next line item, fuel. So we have a fuel hedge program that helps us manage this line item better. So we hedge our fuel, and that is the reason we are able to control our costs a little bit there. So down a little bit by about 300,000. Parts and supplies, you can see we're down about 1.5 million. And that's us really just controlling our parts and our different line items that we're hitting there. We could see fluctuations in the next year, but we're really just trying to control and focus in on that this year. For casualty insurance, you see we're down about 300,000. We are self-insured, but we do have some excess policies for excess cost, and we have seen some increases there, but we've been able to manage that in the upcoming budget year. For utilities, we see a slight increase of about 200,000, and then other operating expense, you'll see we're down about 2.2 million, and that's really related to some lease activity that we have for that line item. So in total, our expenses are about 334 million. Moving down into other expenses, interest expense, you can see we're down about 7.4 million at 11.9 million. And this again relates to that LRV lease that is ending this year. So we've been able to reduce that cost. And then other non-operating expense, we're down about 2.1 million. And that's really related to those pass-through grants. So in total, we have a deficit of about 4.8 million, and we're managing that internally by trying to find efficiencies, so not coming asking for more appropriation from the city and the county and St. Clair County. So then the depreciation line item. So our depreciation, our capital projects are primarily funded by the FTA. So you can see that that's causing our total deficit to be 67.2 million, but that's not of concern because that funding comes in from elsewhere. So if we can advance to the next slide. I think there's one part right prior to that, a pie chart. There you go. Thank you. So this slide is really just to reiterate the revenue or funding sources that we have coming in. So the bottom three items are our funding partners, St. Clair County, St. Louis City, and St. Louis County. So that matches the prior slide. And then again, reiterating passenger revenue at 19.5 million. Our investment income, the federal vehicle maintenance money that I talked about, and some of our other revenue. And then moving into the next slide, this is really our appropriation request. So you can see that we're up about $1 million from the prior year, and our request this year is $47.6 million. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Just a couple notes right off the top for me. On the pie chart, it says the city of St. Louis is 42 million, but the appropriation request for 2025 was 46.6, and the appropriation request for 2026 is 4.6. What's the discrepancy there?
I apologize. I should have mentioned that as I was going through. So that pie chart is reflective of our operating budget. But in addition to that, we ask for our the local match on capital projects. So that's 4 million, and then 2 million for our debt on our bonds. So there's a principal amount there.
Thank you. And then for the budget 2025 numbers, there's no actuals in there for.
So that first column is the 2024 actuals. Yes.
Right, but do we not have like year-to-date 2025?
We do, and I can get those to you.
Okay. Just curious. Like,
okay.
Are we on target? Are we, not on target, and all of that?
So we are pretty much on target. We have some fluctuations, really about truing up some of our sales tax and those sorts of things, but I can definitely get information to you.
Okay. And then just your reserves, I was trying to look up your budget online to get a more comprehensive picture, but what are you all in terms of your reserve for financial purposes? Do you have a reserve?
Oh, you're saying like a cash reserve?
Cash reserve.
So so it's not really a reserve. Our funds are really all obligated. Okay. So so when it's not technically a reserve, but what we would look at that as really our capital funds. Mm-hmm. So what we haven't spent yet, but I don't like to look at it that way because it's all obligated. So we don't have really reserves. We really have to stay on focus with what we are budgeting.
But just from like a pure cash flow perspective, I mean, sometimes, things get obligated in advance and you're going to need money to cover those expenses. So I mean, you have to have some
Yes.
bank account somewhere that has
So
to cover expenses.
that is when we do go into those capital funds. And so we will use that. So say we have a timing difference on funding that we receive in, we will use those funds, but then we replace them as soon as those funds come. So we're constantly balancing that.
Okay.
It's complicated. Yes.
Is that a legal requirement for you all underneath your statute, or is that just your normal operating procedure?
That's our normal operating procedure.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. But also on going back to the pie chart,
Okay.
I always have to point this out to people. I don't see the state of Missouri listed on this pie chart.
Yes.
And can you tell me, there's this little slice of the pie that says miscellaneous other,
Yes.
which is 3.5% of the budget.
Yes.
Can you tell me, is the state of Missouri at all part of that? And
Yes,
if so,
they
what
are.
the amount is?
So the amount in there is close to, it's over 4 million. So it's probably 4.3 in total.
Yeah.
So we get some other various, or we budget for some other various funding state, but yes.
And those state funds, are they predominantly project-related capital expenditures, or these operational in terms of, sorry, unrestricted funds?
So when we get them in, they're unrestricted. We've used them for both capital and in operating. We're using it as operating this year.
Okay, all right. I just have to point out that every year, the state of Missouri woefully underfunds public transit throughout the state. It's not just a St. Louis issue, it's a Kansas City issue, it's a Hannibal issue, it's a Cape Girardeau issue, it's a Springfield issue, it's a Joplin issue,
Yes.
it's a Columbia issue. The state of Missouri might as well have their Department of Transportation called the Department of Highways, because they really do not focus that much on other transit outside of highways.
Mm-hmm.
So I always have to point that out, because I don't think that the general public fully understands. Most states put a larger percentage of their state budget towards public transit, and not just for urban communities, but also for the smaller cities throughout the state that have public transit needs. And Missouri woefully and inadequately falls short of that every year since at least the time that I've been in office. So with that, I'm going to just turn it over to members of the committee for questions on the presentation, and then we can get into the specific board bills after that. Alderman Oldenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here. That was an excellent sort of financial snapshot. I appreciate it. I just had one question kind of related to ridership, and if you have any data year over year for the last few years on ridership. I noticed passenger revenue was slightly down, and I don't know if that's fully attributed to just less ridership, or if it's a kind of a combination of things.
Thank you, Alderman. This is Talby speaking. Ridership has been increasing year over year. However, we have had our average revenue go down. We think that's a combination of reasons having to do with more people using passes and so on. And also, we feel that the implementation of the new fare system and the secure platform plan will allow us to recapture and look at our fares on a more holistic basis. We haven't had a new fare system since for 15 years. Yeah. So that will give us great opportunities to move some of our fundamental revenue up and offer more products to the public. So we've been a little bit more conservative with the fare revenue from this budgetary standpoint. And mostly the reason why that's important is because I know it gets a little confusing about budget. We have to make budget. This committee does not give me the opportunity to come back in and say, oh, guess what? I need more money. I don't get to do that. So the terms are a little confusing. And once you guys pass that, those bills, we're set for the year. And for instance, as Alderman Cohn mentioned, we use some of the capital revenues for that float, essentially, which we are allowed to do statutorily. So we're in very good shape financially. This is a very sound organization. Unlike a lot of the transit brothers and sisters across the country, we're in great shape. But that has to do with that 7 years of fiscal year. So I know that was a little long explanation,
No,
Alderman, but wanted to give it to you.
no, it was very helpful. I have nothing further. Thank you, Colby.
Alderman Narayan.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fulbright, for that presentation. Mr. Roach, always lovely to see you and everybody with the organization. Great presentation. So a few questions, kind of nitty gritty about what you presented today, and then some overall kind of questions as well. So you mentioned regarding the fuel price going down, you said that was because of a way you're billing for fuel, or wait, but or not billing, but wait, the way you're charging fuel. But do the electrical buses have any improvements with how much is being paid?
So it's really a hedge. The hedge is really designed to take the oscillation of off, right?
Hedge is the word you used. Okay.
Yes, so we do have and we literally will buy millions of gallons of diesel fuel based on a hedging implement, which is meant for us essentially to try to make those costs consistent over time. Not to make money, it's actually to keep it consistent so that we don't see huge oscillations in the market. I don't have a good answer for the electrical use. It's a good one. I will have to ask my team about that, but it was a cooperative contract with Ameren. Ameren was an equity partner in some of the charging infrastructure. We're continuing to do that. We're actually right now in construction at the DeBoliver location to add more charging buses. That investment in electrical fleet will continue on a measured basis. We need to be sure that these systems are operating well. As you know, we have a 14 full electric fleet on the Grand, our number 70. And we're rolling it out. There's some bugs here and there. I will say that with any new technology. There are some, for instance, because they're new buses, I had one on the side of the road for 6 months because I couldn't get a windshield. And those are one of those strange things with new technology that you think, there's lead times for those kind of things. So it's going well. The passengers love those buses. Let me just tell you from a use standpoint and from a consumer standpoint, we get a lot of really positive messaging from that. Our operators are doing really well working them. We have a few stars who are actually getting more efficiency because they're just good at driving them. So very interesting. We've added that to some of our training. So let me look into that, Alderwoman Schweitzer.
I can certainly say the electric buses are much more pleasant to ride in. I believe the number 10 has had a few electric buses. Sometimes I get picked up in one. And, I'm always really grateful when that one comes.
Yeah.
Smoother, quieter, nicer. It's a good experience. So regarding the deficit, you said we're managing it internally. And I just wanted a little bit more about what that means for whether you're expecting cuts or what it is that.
Yeah, so we are looking at different efficiencies for maintenance. So we didn't, at the time of the budget, we didn't put them in there, but we do know that we've already progressed on some of that. So I have been able to figure out probably at least half of that budget, but it allows me to ask for less on a budget year.
Okay, yeah, because it seems like the deficit in 2024 being 116 million, and then the projected budget for 2025 being 64 million. Obviously, there's still a deficit, but a pretty big expected difference, and that just seems like a lot to manage internally in
Yes.
a $300 million budget.
So the 67 million, 62 of that is really depreciation. And so that isn't something I have to manage internally. It's really more of timing how the FTA will for those needs.
Interesting. Okay. So it was more of a $5 million
Yes.
management.
So I've been able to figure out half of it, and I'm rest of it.
Okay, that's a big job.
Yes.
Thank you. So Alderman Cohn asked one of my questions basically about, 2025 actual numbers, and I just wondered how close the projected budget deficit from 2025 was to the actual, but you may not have that number in front of you.
So for 25, we're pretty much on target with the last numbers I received. So we're always kind of running behind because we haven't closed out on June, and we have to make adjustments for the audit, some of the adjustments there. But from what I can tell right now, we're pretty much on target.
Well, that's a big improvement from the 2024 deficit.
Yes.
Well done. And so you mentioned that one of the reasons the interest income was low in 2024 and then also projected lower for 2026 was because of projects. So we talked about a few, the bus electric project I'm sure is costing a lot of money. Is it the security, Green Line? What kind of projects there?
So one of the biggest ones is we have an LRV replacement project that's almost 400
LRV.
light rail vehicles, so the Metrolink trains. So that project, as it was, the funding was being accumulated and that sort of thing, we were able to earn interest on it. But as we're now spending that, we don't have as much to earn.
Got it. So bus stop improvements, are any bus stop improvements in other operating expenses, or do you expect to be working with how hot it is right now? I can tell you that, my bus stop doesn't have any shade, and so many across the city have no shade whatsoever, no places for people to be. Is that something that's in the works, or?
Yeah, I'd love to do them. Quite frankly, it really has been mostly a funding issue and commitment from policymakers, because quite frankly, the right-of-way is very, very important and a key commitment that I need from administrations to make that work. With our success over the last several years, we've seen, and our partnerships with other partners like CMT and so on, we have been moving forward on some of those bus stop improvements. And as a matter of fact, I've asked Ron Forrest and his planning team to look at some of the top stops to target them for a couple of different options. What we want to offer is a suite of different options that includes a large shelter, or there are options where it's even just a pole with one place to sit, trying to do a little bit more on those passenger amenities side. And we are trying to move to those passenger amenities side. You're right, the interest expense, great observation. You know how to read a sheet. Well done. Good news, bad news. Good news, we have new equipment on order. Bad news, we have less cash and therefore making less money. So those vehicles are out in Sacramento, getting in the United States, getting manufactured right now. The first ones will be in 2027. That is an entirely new light rail vehicle fleet. And those kind of investments with, for instance, Wi-Fi, nice cleaner vehicles. The windows will actually even be bigger on the new vehicles, which is hard to believe because it's really nice. But we need to concentrate more on those amenities for our everyday passengers. And so I've asked Ron to take a look at that, do some targeting with some fundamental bus stops, especially with our ridership data. We can get those high bus stops and kind of work on them on a basis. We have the same request from St. Louis County. We have a lot of bus stops out there. I think I have 1,200. But we can look at those for the bigger ones that fit nicely, and I think it's a very reasonable request and one that we should.
And I know it's not just as simple as building a bus stop and now it's done. There's always the issues that you need someone to make sure the trash gets picked up, and maintaining the bus stop. There's different issues with vandalism. I've seen it all, so I understand it's not just simple. But I have noticed also, there have been groups in the St. Louis community that have put in their own benches.
They have.
And I see people using them. And I know that it's not following, the ADA standards that would need to be in place if you all are doing the work. And I'm not asking you necessarily to comment on it. Please don't remove them. But it is something that I've noticed and people do enjoy having in the bus stops.
No question. So by saying a suite of options, I want to make it clear, for instance, when I put a stop in, I have to do full ADA compliance. It should be that way.
Right.
But that means also that and then this is more prevalent in St. Louis County, then I have to have a sidewalk that goes to a discernible intersection. And I can't get in the sidewalk business. But we're all in the sidewalk business.
Right.
We're also all in the trash business. I can't be in the trash business. So by a suite of option, one thing that I recently did with Kirkwood is we put in trash cans at 4 stops there in Kirkwood. We put the trash cans in, did some of the improvements, but the deal with the city of Kirkwood is that they would then empty them.
Right.
The result for the public has been very, very positive. It's right there on Kirkwood Road there, Lindbergh, where they get a lot of ridership of employees who are taking transit to the Kmart and to the Target, et cetera. So these kind of cooperative ideas are what I would like to offer to each municipality and funder and maybe pick off some top targets.
And trash cans are such an interesting thing because, when I've traveled to other places, one of the, in particular, places that has incredible public transit is Japan, and they don't have public trash cans anywhere. They actually find it is, culturally rude for people to leave their trash anywhere besides their own home. So they always just bring it with them, which I love as a cultural thing that I don't think we're going to bring necessarily to our country at this moment. But I think about that a lot when it's like, when there's a trash can, sometimes there's piles of trash around the trash can, and it actually seems to be breeding trash as opposed to be getting rid of trash. And so I'm not saying if we put a trash can in, it's going to fix it, because we know that it doesn't. It creates other issues. Okay, I have other questions. One second, let me pull up my here. I know Alderman Browning has a lot of questions about the secure ridership or the security. I'm interested generally in if their belief is that you said earlier that security improvements will increase ridership. I have a hard time believing it because it makes it harder to use. I know nearby, just in the transit center just around the corner from us, where we're sitting here, it changes how easy it is to move from the bus to the train, and makes it a little bit more complicated for the riders. So it's hard for me to believe that's going to make it easier. I feel like it makes it more intimidating. I don't want to have to deal with those gates at all, but I would like to hear you just speak a little bit more to that, if you have noticed already an increase in ridership and you believe it's associated with that, or just more people using it after getting back to business as normal with COVID ending. Sure.
So until the system is completely 100% in, and that's not until January 26, will we really see comprehensive data on how those things will sort out. But I can give you anecdotal examples. We have the secure plan as a pilot program on several of the east side stations. The ridership numbers at Emerson Park went up 40% when we put the gates in.
Wow.
Okay, it was significant.
Can I ask, is that because you now know people are buying tickets, and therefore it's like the ridership didn't actually increase, but now you're knowing for sure that people have tickets on the?
I think it's a combination of both.
Okay.
I think that no matter what, we need to see our product as something that people are willing to invest in, that they feel, hey, I feel safe, and therefore I will buy a premium ticket to be on it.
Right.
And that security goes all the way from folks who live in the nicest neighborhoods to folks who are working class folks, most of whom are on our system right now, who deserve to have a safe ride. So we do believe then that once we establish that fundamental customer service piece that feels safer, that'll allow us also to move our ridership up. At the same time, we're also moving with the new fare revenue system, which will be in place at the same time. It is a parallel project. That is close to a $25 million investment in new fare media, and will allow us to take our cell phones and swipe that option. We do have it on a pilot basis right now. It's operating. Those readers are on all of the buses right now, and it's working. So we're very, and therefore the accessibility, which is a great point, make it easy to access.
Right.
Our current TVMs are admittedly clumsy. They take a while to get through and so on. So I would love to increase the operability of that system, but that is a major, major investment for us. Additionally, we haven't looked at new fare, what our fare policy is, how much a monthly pass is, and so on, so that we are balancing. We haven't changed fares in nearly 15 years. Now, it's important that our system be affordable. As I quote all the time, nearly 74% of our riders, current riders, report making annual incomes of under $60,000. So we need to be very cognizant of the value quotient for those fundamental riders who are going to work typically. Right. I will need to bring any new fare policy in front of you to have that public policy discussion. And we just need to balance that out with what our investments are made. That $19 million in fare revenue that Tammy showed is very, very important because, yes, I'm asking for a lot more than that from you today, but that helps us balance our system out. And it is a fundamental quotient of fairness, which I do think is resonates with our Midwestern town. Has to do with the tax support that we've gotten successfully through tax initiatives, whether people take transit or not. And I do think that that's an important component, and therefore safety and security helps us move some of that revenue up.
And when we talk about people taking transit, one of the things that was great to receive is Citizens for Modern Transit's letter of support for all of these bills. And they mentioned a few things that I think are really great, and I'd love to hear more about. Increased frequency on 13 Metro bus routes in June, increase in caller ride service of more than 20% with zero denials for the last 6 months, which is huge. I know we're all very concerned about caller ride and accessibility. I don't think I've ever gotten on a bus and not had someone get on the bus at some point who was in a wheelchair. It is a high percentage of the users of the bus that I see all the time. And then the operators working in both the buses, trains, and the caller ride, and then potential continued future expansion. When I think about what makes people want to take public transit, it's less about the security piece in my mind, which I understand being safe is number one all the time, but the frequency of how often the bus or train comes. You know, sometimes I can't take the bus that day because a phone call went long and now I'm 2 minutes late for when I should have left, and now that would make me 40 minutes late for my next meeting, kind of thing. So I'd love to just hear more about frequency, accessibility, those issues, if you don't mind speaking to that.
Okay,
and definitely introduce yourself. Thank you.
So I'm Chuck Stewart, and I will be retiring on Monday.
Oh, man.
Chief Operating Officer for Metro Transit.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So I appreciate the comments that you just shared, because it's a recognition of what we have been committed to over the last couple of years. Basically, coming out of COVID, we found ourselves 200 operators short, 120 caller ride operators short, 50 mechanics short. So during that period of time, we have a quarterly service change. So every quarter we look at what things are happening, what our customers are asking in terms of improvements, what our operators see as opportunities for us to tweak and better our service, and we get together and we replan our service. For the last year and a half or so, it has been focused mainly on increased reliability, increased frequency, and we had to coordinate that with rebuilding our team. So we've hired over 100 bus operators in the last 12 months. So you got to bring them in, you got to train them, you got to get them out in the streets. Coordinating that with the service demands after COVID. We lost 40% of our demand during COVID.
Wow.
It is, as Talby mentioned, it is increased annually at about a 6% rate. We're about to, back to 75 or 80% where we were before COVID. And we've got a new customer base. The things have changed in terms of riding patterns. People are not coming downtown anymore. Okay? So we had to rethink where the demand was and where do we provide the service. So that's what we've been doing. And it really feels good to hear the kind of comments that citizens from Modern Transit is making. I mean, that's our goal. That is our goal. One of the probably the most significant problem or situation or challenge that we've overcome is with call ride.
Right.
We were not providing good service to our disabled community. So we had to rethink that whole process. And in that process, the first thing we did is we brought our service back within the federal parameters of 3/4 miles of our fixed route system. So there were some people that were out beyond that, and it did impact them. But what we have been focusing on is giving better service to the people within the area that we are serving now.
Right.
And what that has seen, 14, 18 months ago, we were providing about 5,000 rides per week. We're now providing over 8,000 a week in a smaller service area. So we're giving much better service to the people that we're providing that service to. Also at that time, we had a denial rate of people that were calling in and we're saying, we can't give you a ride. Okay, we had a denial rate of about 47%.
Wow.
Our denial rate has been 0
Wow.
for the last 7 months.
And have the conversations between groups like Paraquad continued? I know there were regular scheduled meetings that were to work through a lot of these issues, and I get updates on them. I just want to make sure that they're still participating fully. Great.
Absolutely. We are meeting regularly with SMART, that SMART group, and the Paraquad group. We are attending their meetings. They were giving us a report card at one point, and now they're inviting us to the meeting so we can talk about it before they issue a report card. So we are working very diligently in including them. We started a new advocacy group. 15 members of the community are involved in it. We're basically talking to them about what we're planning and what we're doing and reporting our results and getting their feedback as we bring on new systems, new applications. We're having them to help us test those things. So that relationship is going very, very well.
I'm very glad to hear that. I think those are all my questions for now, and I appreciate this. Madam Clerk, if you could please add me as a co-sponsor to Board Bills 35, 36, and 37.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for answering my litany of questions. Thank you, Alderman Cohn.
And we have one colleague who is not a member of the committee that I know has some questions, so I will afford him the opportunity. Alderman Browning.
Thank you, Chair, and it's good to see you all. Mr. Stewart, congratulations on your retirement. I do want to acknowledge, my colleagues pointed out the good work that's been done to improve call ride, to work with advocacy groups for the disabled community, and that continued focus on improvements. I think that's really, really important. As Mr. Roach noted, a significant amount of people that use your service have, well, we would define them as low income, and then there's the people who really have no other choice because they cannot operate a car, or it might be expensive for them to do so. And so we understand a lot of people use that service and appreciate you continuing to try to work for them, because we do believe that's, of all the people that ride, people that have to ride are the ones that really need to be catered to. I had a couple questions going back to buses. The 2021 crash report from TrailNet identified bus stops as particularly dangerous for pedestrians and transit riders. To quote the report, it said a disproportionate number of fatal pedestrian crashes occur near bus stops. In fact, when analyzed, we found that 36% of pedestrian crashes and 45% of pedestrian fatalities occur within 200 feet of a metro bus stop in St. Louis City. In St. Louis County, 27% of pedestrian crashes and 32% of pedestrian fatalities occur within 200 feet of a metro bus stop. That is due to what they conclude is exceptionally wide roads that have an exceptional amount of daily traffic and an exceptional amount of cars traveling at high speeds. Bi-State shares the streets with the city in order to operate its service. On the occasions that I've had to work with Bi-State officials, I've always found them to be pleasant and customer focused, and I really appreciate that. But I'm perplexed then when I work with the city departments and we're trying to do a street project and we're trying to wrap in bus stop improvements into that street project, and we don't seem to get that same amount of cooperation or financial support from Bi-State. It strikes me that we should, if we're doing a traffic project, say I'm doing one on Wendell Avenue right now, a major bus route, and that if we're going to go ahead with this, there should be some cooperation between the city and Bi-State to make sure that we're doing this all at the same time. This could include a lane reduction such that we have in-lane bus stops with pedestrian, like with bus stop islands. I mean, really the kinds of things you see in premier transit cities like San Francisco that we could bring here, but we need Bi-State's cooperation on that. So I'm just asking today, can we get a little more cooperation, and do you see chances for us to improve? And if so, what could help improve cooperating with those city departments in the future?
Yeah, I think those are great ideas and are fundamentally of how we want to, think of what are our communities of the future. I think it's a great idea. For one, some of those fundamentals, a lot of people walk, take bikes, access our system other than automobile oriented. And a lot of this change, even in these large metropolitan areas, is moving from exclusive auto orientation to other modes, and in particular, respect of the pedestrian. I think that's a very salient point and one that we are committed to working with. I will tell you that we have to be respectful of, because we do operate on roads. There has been a significant change over the past decade in policy as far as most transportation departments are concerned. But Alderman, you guys drive policy. There's no question. So the city, through leadership from committees like this one, have made major investments in traffic calming, and I believe in those principles, and I think they enhance transit. I think it's a great idea. To continue on the idea of talking to Mr. Forrest about targeting some high ridership bus routes is one possibility is thinking of putting a small capital fund aside for exclusively bus stop improvements. One of the reasons why that's really good is that it can be used as matching funds, in particular if we have a federal program to go for. I think that would be a really an important policy step, and one that we could look into, and I will I'll take that suggestion and I'll run with that commitment, try to see of what would be appropriate as maybe a little seed funding specifically maybe to target some bus stops on an annual basis. If we put just a modest amount of, let's say, 100,000 aside for that targeting that anyone, let's say an alderman on your district could draw down for a local match, let's say $5,000 for a local match for some bus stop improvements or for a curb change, it could mean it really go a long way, in particular because then we leverage those funds on, maybe CMAQ funding or other grant funding, which I know everybody is, that's the magic to making the finances work, is leveraging local dollars to the feds. Great idea. I also want to, if I may, Alderman, putting some continued pressure on the state of Missouri, as Alderman Cohn mentioned, is top of our list. We've done better with that funding. The $4 million is really welcome because it is pretty much discretionary funding. So if we have a little pilot program that we can do some side funding, it's a great idea. I'm in Jefferson City working very, very hard on that $4 million. That seems really difficult in the face of that funding from Illinois is actually close to $50 million, which is quite a difference. But we're going to keep plugging, and my suggestion is it's a great idea to advance to our legislative team.
That'd be great. I think if the state doesn't realize that it's actually a lot cheaper for them to maintain transit lines than it is to try to fit all the cars that would replace those people if we don't have good transit, 4 million. Okay, so you doubled that, you could probably save twice that in highway maintenance if you just took the cars off the road, given how many people a bus can transport. So it'd be nice to see some thought on the state's part to really invest in the future of public transit, because otherwise the roads will just continue to get clogged up with cars. We'll continue to see more demand for parking, which is not a good investment. And you just end up seeing what is a waste of taxpayer dollars on really the most inefficient mode of transportation. Turning now to the MetroLink service, there was a recent Post-Dispatch article dated June 5th that stated that officials at the Bi-State Development Agency, which runs Metro, decided in 2021 to install turnstiles, even though they weren't recommended by a consulting firm that was hired to study MetroLink security following several high-profile crimes on the rail line. The consultant, WSP USA Inc., said there wasn't much correlation between serious crime and fare evasion. WSP recommended other steps, which Bi-State/Metro have mostly adopted, such as the expanded camera network. So my question for you is, why did you install gates when your own consulting firm said they would not have an improvement on safety?
Sure. So the WSP study, which is a really valuable one we reference all the time, was done cooperatively with East-West Gateway. There's a lot of great data, no question. And it is factual that they pointed to the point, and that was an unusual moment of accuracy for the Post-Dispatch to say that, to properly quote, that it was, there's no correlation towards fare evasion and violent crime. That's absolutely accurate. However, perception of safety within the system is an absolute tenet that I have been pounded on by transportation committees like this, by electeds, by the general taxpayers, year after year after year. And perception and confidence in the system is absolutely a tenet that we are going to pursue. And there's no question that, for instance, let's just be very honest about, and this is a city that I love, the same challenges that downtown has, for instance, perception of crime, not even necessarily whether the crime is there, is important, because in order to have downtown recover, you have to have people show up to recover. It's the same on transit, Alderman Browning. I do get challenged very correctly with those numbers, and people ask, is safety and security a marketing program to increase transit ridership? You want to call it that? It's okay with me, because I need more ridership. you've asked me about what our ridership numbers are accurately, and we need to. The point is that this is a tax-supported transit system that we've passed by over 60% margins. So I need people who are not even taking transit all across this region to believe in its veracity. And the number one component was safety and security. And I do appreciate you mentioning the camera part of the SPP, because that has been extraordinarily successful. One of the things that we committed to the city, county, and St. Clair County was rebuilding our fundamental relationships with law enforcement agencies. And now, because of our 1,600 cameras on the system, we are assisting other members of our community in solving crimes that are not even on Metro. Some of them are also just welfare type circumstances. I can reference to several of them. And I know several of you have been to see the camera system and how that works. We've now married that with access with all of our law enforcement agencies. Are actually, I am convinced, making the entire region safer by having that availability on transit. But all of this comes with an investment that includes an $11 million investment by private sector actors, cash, on that project. I was able to go to the business leaders of St. Louis once we were able to make that commitment and get some of that investment in a public asset. And part of that is salesmanship. What are the aspects that are very important? How do we compromise and come to that? And you're absolutely right in pointing out that we came to a compromise that maybe not everybody liked that solution, but I got to the 80%. And I say this to my staff all the time. I'm going to listen very carefully and try to give you everything that I can, but I can't give you everything. But if I get you to 80 or 90%, if I cover 80 to 90% of the region with quality transit, then I think my job is done.
Well, thank you. I do agree that perception is important, and I do actually agree with cameras. I think that they're a great way of not just making sure they're secure, but when there is an incident, that we get the right person. We have an extensive camera network in the Central West End, and oftentimes I find that eyewitness accounts are not dependable, but cameras don't lie, and we're often able to make sure that people are helped and made sure that people are safe through the use of those cameras. However, I am concerned about changing environments in the nation right now. And we've heard a lot about how ICE is cooperating with local law enforcement and using local camera networks. Can you tell us if you share the camera footage or data with federal law enforcement agencies like ICE?
Yeah, I can tell you that we have had absolutely no requests like that whatsoever. The only law enforcement agencies that we have had experience with was SLMPD, St. Louis County Police Department, and St. Clair County. And we do have a portal for them to request video information, and those officers also know how to get to the camera center to deal with everyday issues. And that's really what this is about. It's about everyday issues in our community. We do not have any interaction of that type right now.
So you're saying they have to go through a normal process of requesting the footage, and usually that requires a court order or something that would actually enable them to get that info from you?
Yes, it does. Or an established contractual relationship, which we have with each of our law enforcement agencies. So we have, so we have procedures for that. I need to stop at court order because I'm not a lawyer, and I don't want to say that's a necessary step, but it's a very formal request procedure that my team worked on. I can formalize that in a specific email to you if you'd like.
I'd appreciate that. I know that I'm not the only one of my colleagues who has that concern. So, and going back to just perception being important. So when you're battling perceptions, it is often very difficult because you're not really working with reality, right? Perception and reality. But you mentioned like perception of competency, and this is where I wonder about the gates, right? Because the gates were installed, the gates don't work. They are sitting there with an attendant at every single gate there to simply open it for you. And if the attendant isn't there, people were having trouble getting in on time. And eventually, I saw an article recently that said they were just going to open them until they could get them working. Why were the gates installed when they weren't ready yet? And how does that improve safety or the perception of safety to have a non-working product installed that really just ends up causing more of a headache for the people who use it every day?
So I have 39 Metrolink stations to cover. It takes a while to do the project, and we did it on a phased basis to be sure that the electronic communication could be done, and we started with a pilot in Illinois. Until then, the parallel fair media project is completed in January of 2026. We are essentially in construction. And Alderman, you deal with this all the time, and I'm a little puzzled by everybody's confusion about this. When you have a normal street project or anything like that, yes, there's barriers and cones up, and there's a transition period in construction. The lack of recognition of that simple point is quite frustrating. It is true that in the pilot program, initially we manned those gates because also we will have a change and we'll have to man some of those gates because people are coming up to them and they're, well, where's the reader? And we want to have fundamental customer service aspects so people start getting used to fundamentally how to access the system, as Alderman Schweitzer mentioned. So there is a transition period. We've asked everybody's patience in doing a project of this size and scope. It is extraordinary. There will be bumps. Look, that's absolutely correct. There'll be a time where one of those guards was called off onto something when we had the tornado. We used the real-time camera center to click a mouse and open all of the gates so that people were not held up in an emergency situation. So normally with 99% of those, there are explanations. And we'll afford those. I welcome everybody to tour the camera center, to look at the updates that we put out on a monthly basis to our stakeholders about the project of that, about the progress of that significant project. So far, it's going well. There's a lot of pressure on my team to get it done and our contractors. And again, we're moving towards January of 2026. I get more inquiries from federal partners about that project than any other project that I have, about what it's like to look at this. I've had inquiries from some of our sister agencies, Minneapolis being one, Calgary being another, at what are the general effects? How are you doing this? A lot of people are looking at the project and seeing what are the positives. It's just not done yet, Alderman. I ask for your patience, and like any project, we need to move through and get it in. It will be in on a 100% basis in January. Inevitably, we will work through the normal bugs of a new fare system, but I think it will improve our overall customer experience, and we do put out a monthly communication about that progress. I know it gets sent to you. We can always do a little better on communications, but I can never get every single person.
Well, I understand construction, but I think this is a little bit different. January 2026 is a year and a half away, and there's several stations where there's no longer active construction, but the gates don't work. And that, to me, when I think of these gates, I think the word boondoggle, because if the consultant agency said they would not have an actual improvement on safety, and then over $50 million, and I think it's over budget. Did I read that too? That it's about 10 million over budget.
Right now, with the construction that like you do, we do a regular independent construction estimate. The original one was $52 million. I think it's going to come right around 61, and that's the nature of the construction market right now. That percentage increase, I think, is reasonable given the size and scope of this, and is comparable to every single project within the city of St. Louis. I challenge you to point to any project in the city that has not seen an increase over that period of time, any single one, or in the county. The construction market is moving, and I think that's a reasonable movement. We've had good things. It's inaccurate to say that the gates don't work. Like I said, we only have some gates in. I believe the number is 10. They operate when we have the flash of the with the security agent there to try to get people used to that ingress and egress. But it isn't a year and a half away. I believe it's June of this year, so January is not too far away. There's a lot of work that's got to be done after that. I think it's a wise investment. To clarify what the WSP said, is it didn't say, it said that the correlation between violent crime and so on, a little bit of it is splitting hairs. I think we have a great investment in gates. I think we're committed to it. I think boondoggle is highly inaccurate. I challenge you on that wording. And we're only through about 30% construction. And I think the system deserves a chance, and I think it'll be a great improvement to transit in St. Louis.
Yeah, I think that I've ridden the Metrolink a few times in the past few months, and it's not part of my daily commute, but I do use it to go downtown for events. I think it's better than parking and dealing with that hassle. And when I've used it, I found it to be a very frustrating experience. Not only is the gate having to be manned by a person at every place, that employee seems exhausted. They're not really there for security at all. They're just there to open the gate, which is a poor use of manpower, in my opinion. And I think the gates work, but they've worked to degrade the customer experience. Ridership, you said, has been increasing year after year, but you're not sure if it's a combination of more people using passes and implementation of that new secure system, so we're just counting them more, and you're hoping that the secure platform program will help recapture revenue. That's what I heard you say earlier.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's accurate.
But passenger revenue in 2024 was about 19 million. The secure platform project is now totaling $60 million.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't adding up to me in terms of recaptured revenue when you have about 3 years worth of revenue that's being spent on this secure platform project. Would it be better to position those employees or security on the trains or on the platforms rather than try to close what was designed to be an open system?
So we look, and I am not an expert on how we disperse some of our security personnel, and Mr. Scott is actually my director of securities, can speak much more eloquently on what are the objectives of safety and security on the system. So I'd ask him to do that, and I'm happy for him to take a look at that. It's always in a more fluid situation. I do know that those guards, we do track them, and we get the most out of them that we can. I'm not saying every single guard has the perfect day, but most of them, I think, really good work. And it also has to be in line with creating a budget that makes sense. Would it be nice for me to have full police officers on every single train? Of course, I would. I'd love that. Is that reasonable from a financial standpoint? Absolutely not. It's not reasonable at all. It's also not reasonable to articulate that capital projects are transferable to operating. That's not reasonable either. Operating is a long-term expense, and for instance, passenger revenue is something that keeps going year after year after year, just like mortgage payments or something. So implying that they're easily transferable is a bit of a financial issue. But what we have done is I asked for those investments from leadership of the city, county, and from the business leadership. We were able to figure out a way to make that project work, and I think it's very good. But that's not transferable money to, for instance, everyday operating. What is key is that as an organization, and how you should hold our feet to the fire is, are there strategies in place that you're looking at to improve passenger revenue? I'm with you on that challenge. That's correct. We should be doing that. One of those tools, I think, is SPP, and we disagree a little bit on its effectiveness. Totally good with that. I like being challenged on issues, because if we're not strong and confident about, looking at things different ways, we're making a mistake. But that, along also with putting in a new fare revenue system, and ours is quite antiquated with our TVMs. You probably would agree with me that that's a clunky operation right now. That allows us to move to that next generation of easily accessible transit. And the safety and security issue is a significant one, and continues to be. This is one solution. And I accept that not everybody is going to like every aspect of this piece. But what I do want to commit to you is that it is a measured idea to try to recapture and increase our revenue on a long-term basis. So I'm hoping to do that. I think they're very fair questions. We just disagree on some.
And Mr. Roach, I agree with you on the importance of accessibility and ease of access, and I think that's the key to ridership. That people will use a system that they feel is easy to use and takes them to where they are trying to go. So frequency plays into that, but also the ability to swipe a phone. In other cities I've gone to, it's so easy. You just have a unified card on your phone that you can use on any of the transit systems, and you just tap your phone as you go on the bus. Will those new Metrolink gates also work with the tap of a phone?
Yes.
Okay, that's good to hear. Because, as you said, sometimes we can't completely agree, but we can get 80 to 90%, and that's good enough. That's this job all the time. So we really understand that. But I think, attractive, workable gates that are, everyone can use would be the goal if we have to go the gate route. But I'm wondering, because I've heard some concerns about accessibility. You consulted about 30 groups, just from what I've read. You consulted about 30 individuals and organizations over the Secure Platform Project and held 2 town halls. Were any of those meetings with any disability groups or Paraquad or STAR or any of those?
I don't remember how many town halls we had specifically on SPP, but we have a very active relationship with members of the disability community. As a matter of fact, I was very hopeful that some of them would have come and testified today, as they did for us in the county just a couple of days ago. And I asked Mr. Stewart, who deserves credit for most of this work, he won't take it, but also being pushed by you, Alderman. And like I said, we're in this together, and so critiques are totally fair. And the point of the disabled community is how important and what a high value quotient that transit is for them. And so therefore, us accepting fair critiques and criticisms within those pieces is absolutely a fundamental tenet of what I believe we are becoming. I think we're a better agency for those conversations. The accessibility subcommittee that we created, along with the work with the advocacy groups, which does mean that we get some criticism. You know what? That criticism has been fair, because right on the back of it, the same people who were criticizing us came to the county meeting and gave us some compliments. It was really kind of them. They didn't have to do that, because I believe what we're doing is creating a sense of community. They own our system. We own their comments, both the critiques and the compliments. And so what I can tell you is, I don't remember how many specific public meetings we had on SPP, but it is a fully accessible ADA compliant system. If we do need to make some tweaks associated with handicap accessibility with SPP, we will be committed to because they're important customers, maybe our highest value customers.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I believe one of their slogans is "Nothing about us without us," and I think it's super important to have people from the disabled community at the table when making decisions about things that affect them. Because, as you said, these people depend on transit, and it also strikes me that when we design things to work for them, it works for everybody, right? So if the timer on the street crossing light is long enough for somebody who is using a walker to make their way across, then it's long enough for everyone else to make it across safe. And that same principle applies to the Metrolink and Metrobus. I really do appreciate the dialogue today. I think there's room where we disagree, but there's also a lot of places where we agree, and I see a lot of improvement. So I want to acknowledge that. I want to encourage you to continue to focus on catering to people who actually ride the Metro, and not to people who will never ride it because they have a negative perception that won't change because they never ride it. And you know, when everyday users have a positive experience, I think that really encourages other people to use it as well. So, you know, the complaint I hear a lot about it is people smoking on the trains, people playing loud music on the trains, or talking loudly on their phones with it on speaker, or, you know, just generally disruptive behavior. And I think that's where, you know, an ambassador on the train would be helpful more than, because a gate's not going to stop that, right? And so focusing on those kinds of improvements for people who ride the system daily, and listening to those people, because their experience, they are the foremost experts on that experience, right? I wouldn't ask them what security upgrades to make. I defer to security experts. When it comes to their everyday experience, I think we should be listening to the people who use the service. Again, I appreciate you being here today, and you being patient with me as I grill you over some of these details. Again, we need to work together. I totally agree. So always room to improve, but let's just keep improving. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Alderman. I know while not necessarily germane to the presentation, they are very much correlated to the line items that are in that budget. So I appreciate the thoughtfulness of your questions, and I think that we do have a couple takeaways from the conversation about the presentation that we can have a follow-up discussion and another public meeting around it. It seems like the shelters and how can we find funding mechanisms for those, safety and the gates and that project implementation. And also, I personally would like to have you back to discuss updates on the Green Line and just where we are with those as well. So while not necessarily germane to the 3 board bills that are before us, I think all of those are topics that are pertinent and worthy of discussion. So I'll work with the committee to get a future meeting scheduled for I don't want to say over the summer, but possibly over the summer, if not when we return in early fall. So with that, thank you for your time this morning. We'll go ahead and take up each of the board bills respectively. First up is Board Bill 35, which is the appropriation from the transportation sales tax. If I could just ask you, for each of the board bills, can you just get up and explain the tax that we are utilizing, and if you have any context in terms of when it was approved, the history, et cetera, so that we can just have that out in the public domain for folks. I would appreciate it. But Board Bill 35 is the first board bill. It's an appropriation of $26.3 million through the transportation sales tax.
And that is the 1974 tax that was passed. And so that is the full amount that we project. Basically, we put I hate to use the word cushion, but it kind of is, so that we don't have to come back in front of you if that funding comes in at a higher amount. I believe the number is 10%.
Great. Any questions from the committee on Board Bill 35? Alderman Oldenburg.
No questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Alderman Narayan.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
No questions, thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 35.
I move that we pass Board Bill 35 with the due pass recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the first ward, seconded by the Alderman from the second ward, that we pass Board Bill 35 out with a due pass recommendation. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Chair Cohn.
Aye.
We have 4 aye votes.
With that vote, you sustain the motion from the Alderwoman from the first that we pass Board Bill 35 out with a due pass recommendation. On to Board Bill number 36, which is the annual appropriation from the transit sales tax imposed and in the amount of $13.6 million roughly.
Yes, and I'm probably going to get the years wrong on this one. I think it's 1995 that this bill was passed, and it is called the Prop 1 sales tax.
Great. Are there any questions on Board Bill 36? Alderman Oldenburg.
No, Chairman. Thank you.
Alderman Narayan.
No, thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
No questions.
With that, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 36.
I move that we pass Board Bill 36 with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
Previous roll.
Moved by the Alderman from the first, seconded by the Alderman from the second, that we pass Board Bill 36 out with a due pass recommendation. There's a request for previous roll. Is there any objection to previous roll? Hearing and seeing none, Board Bill 36 passes out with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill 37, which is the second appropriation from the transit sales tax for the same amount as previous.
And this one is considered Prop M2, and I believe this one was passed in 2011.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the committee? Alderman Oldenburg.
No questions.
Alderman Narayan.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
My only question is that this is the entire balance of the tax that's not in the bill, or is this just a portion of the amount in the fund?
This is the projected total amount.
Okay, wonderful. Then no further questions. Thank you.
With that, I will entertain a motion on Board Bill number 37.
I move that we pass Board Bill 37 with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
Previous roll.
Been moved by the Alderwoman from the first, seconded by the Alderman from the second, that we pass Board Bill 37 out with a due pass recommendation. There's been a request for previous roll. Is there any objection to previous roll? Hearing and seeing none, Board Bill 37 passes out with a due pass recommendation. Thank you all for your time. Congratulations on your retirement again. Wish you all the best, and hopefully we'll see you out and about enjoying our fair city and your retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you. And congratulations on your new job. You have big shoes to fill. Okay, with that, we will now take up Board Bill number 17. And I believe we have Rob Solerano and Antonio Strong from the airport here to help present on Board Bill 17. I see Mr. Strong And
Yes. Good morning.
Rob is
Transportation.
apparently calling in from his closet. There we go. All right.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Good to see you both this morning. We will go ahead and if you have a presentation for Board Bill 17, would love to hear it. Thank you.
Yeah. So my name is Antonio Strone, the Airport Deputy Director of Finance and Administration. I'll be presenting this board bill. I'm sorry that we could not be there in person. We are at an aviation conference where we kind of share ideals and best practices with other airports and other agencies that work with airports. So me and Rob Salerano, who's our property manager, are at this aviation conference. The director, she apologizes she was not able to attend because she had a conflict. This board bill 17, this is regarding grants and the receipt of state grants. So we often receive state grants throughout the year from various state agencies, such as the Missouri Department of Transportation Aviation Trust Fund, Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission, and the Missouri Department of Natural Resources and Missouri Department of Agriculture. So we would like to streamline the process for the receipt of state grants, which we're using for various airport operational needs or infrastructure improvements. And this also becomes very important as we embark on a potential new consolidated terminal. A similar request was made several years ago for the receipt of federal grants, and where we streamlined that process and it was approved by this committee. Currently, when we receive a grant offer, we always have to draft an individual board bill or ordinance and present it for your approval. And it may take up to 2 to 3 months to make it completely through the legislative approval process before we can receive the grant funds. I'll give you an example. We recently received a state grant from the Missouri Department of Transportation's Aviation Trust Fund for approximately about 600 or 700,000. The funds are available from the collection of jet aviation fuel taxes and are permissible to be used for airport marketing purposes to attract more passenger traffic. So an ordinance was created and provided for your approval, and it moved on through the legislative approval process for approximately 3 or 4 months before we could even receive the funds and start our marketing program. So as you know, like 3 to 4 months, we probably missed some opportunities to market a little bit sooner than if we were able to, receive the grant funds immediately. So that is the purpose of this ordinance, just to streamline that process so that we can receive the grant funds immediately. This would just allow us to receive those grant funds without a 3 or 4 month approval process. And at this time, I would just like to respectfully request your approval for this board bill and draft ordinance to streamline the process for future state grants.
Thank you, Antonio. Rob, do you have anything to add?
No, sir.
Okay. I love that the airport is being frugal and you all are sharing a hotel room, apparently. I'm just kidding. I will take questions from the committee. Alderman Oldenburg.
No questions. Thank you all.
Alderman Narayan.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you so much for this presentation. The question I have is less about the bill, which I do think makes a lot of sense in terms of accepting state grants. I would wonder if there's a way for you all to still inform us of when you're accepting a state grant and what it's for. I don't know if that needs to be in the bill necessarily, or if you all can just make it a practice to communicate that with the committee. I think that's really interesting. One of the things I've started hearing about and noticing on federal grants in particular is sometimes there are conditions about not having DEI programs or not having certain things in your operations that I would not necessarily not expect to see from the state at some point that I would be concerned about kind of slipping through us if we're not ever seeing it in front of the board. So I would like to ask you for some assurance that we will be finding out about what you're going to be receiving and from which department for what sort of work.
Yeah, we would definitely keep you informed. It's something that we committed to whenever we took this in front of the airport commission, to also continue to keep you informed about when we do receive grants from the state. So we'll keep you informed, and we'll do that gradually throughout the year.
Okay, so the airport commission, I already asked that question. I didn't watch that hearing, so I didn't, or the committee meeting, so I didn't hear that. But I'm glad that they had the same thoughts there. I'm sure they'd want to know what's coming in and what it's for and all of that. So I think it is smart, and I do appreciate the thoughtfulness here, and hope that we can make sure money is moving smoothly into the airport. So thank you for coming, and appreciate your time.
Thank you, Alderman. And I would just add that in the event that we don't see that happening at the airport commission or at this board, that we can always repeal ordinances as well. So let's try to make things easy and streamline them, but also hold our commitments to transparency and communication as well. So I thank you both for your time this morning. I know you all are at the conference. I want to try to be as respectful because I know we've been in this hearing for about an hour and a half now. I have no further questions or comments, and seeing none from the members of the committee, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 17.
I move that we pass Board Bill 17 with a due pass recommendation.
It's been moved by the
Please
Alderman from the first ward, seconded by the Alderman from the or did I say that right? The Alderman from the first ward, seconded by the Alderman from the second ward, that we pass Board Bill 17 out with a due pass recommendation. There's been a request for previous roll. Is there any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection, Board Bill 17 passes out of committee with a due pass recommendation. Thank you both for your time this morning, and enjoy the rest of your conference.
Thank you.
And with that, the last item on our agenda is Board Bill number 25. Board Bill 25 is not a board bill that I'm planning to vote out of committee today, but there is a committee substitute that was put forward. I have sent that to the airport director for her feedback and input. I would simply like to put the committee substitute before the committee, so that it's out in the public domain and that we can continue gathering input, both from the airport director and then any other groups that might have an interest in providing that feedback. If there are folks that would like to testify on it today, happy to, especially if you've been here for an hour and a half listening to the rest of the bills, happy to take that testimony as well. But ultimately just want to put the committee substitute before the committee this morning. I will make the motion myself. The committee substitute is in the drive. The members of the committee were emailed that, I believe, on Monday of this week. So it's been properly put before the committee. And with that, I will make the motion to adopt the committee substitute to Board Bill 25.
Second, previous roll.
By the Alderman from the third, seconded by the Alderman from the first, that we adopt the committee substitute to Board Bill 25. There's been a request for previous roll. Is there any objection to previous roll? Hearing none, the committee substitute is before the committee. Are there any members of the public that have signed up to testify on Board Bill 25 committee substitute?
Yes.
Alderman.
Sorry, Rob. I was asking that question of the clerk. Do you want to testify on Board Bill 25 committee substitute?
If I could just provide some general initial comments, sir, I'd appreciate it. Just some things. I know that we're still reviewing it as a team, and I know that the airport director will have comments as well. But I do have if I could just take a minute to express some concerns that we have.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to express the concerns. And also thank you to you and the committee. We know that the bill as first read is now changed to the committee substitute. And that's due to some comments that the airport had. And we appreciate you making those changes. And we are reviewing the committee substitute. And it's interesting that usually I've been called before the committee to testify and to answer questions on board bills that the airport supports. And in this case, I'm coming to you to express some concerns that the airport has. One of the first concerns we have is regarding the fee schedule that's set out in section 18.030. And it indicates that all the rental car companies shall essentially shall pay no less than the proportional fees and charges paid by other rental car concessionaires. And that to me changes our on-airport rental car concession agreements that all have a different minimum annual guarantee. So they all pay, if they're paying minimum annual guarantees, all those numbers will be different and will be more or less percentages than each other. So it would seem to me that would eliminate a very important protection of our minimum annual guarantee, which in year 2 is about $10 million for the concession agreements. It also seems to change our off-airport car rental ground transportation use agreements. And I'm guessing it's an amendment to ordinances 69382 and 71242. Those also set out percentage fee payments for off-airport rental cars, and they're calculated differently for the from off-airport to on-airport. And it would appear to flatten those both into the same. And that's a concern with both these agreements. And while we consider the adjustment of fees very concerning, especially at a time where we're trying to grow airport revenue for our airline partners, and our airline partners are looking to us to grow and protect the revenue. There's just a couple other things I just mentioned that are operational in nature. One of the things is that the ordinance requires us to collect information on vehicles, such as models, colors of vehicles rented, VIN numbers, and things like that. I struggle to see where we would use that information. The things we need are gross receipts and the numbers of transactions. And we can also, if we do ask for more information, we can always request it and have right to audit records. There's another section, it would appear to apply to peer-to-peer car rentals, where a placard is required on any car on airport premises that's going to be rented. It's to identify the car as a rental car, and the way the peer-to-peers operate, that would almost be a sign, to steal me, please. Some of the peer-to-peer operators, their host leave the keys in the car. And that would create a liability issue for the city if we required that. There's also some sections about liquidated damages and the way the agreements are canceled that we'd like the chance to comment on as well, and possibly ask for revision. I appreciate the opportunity to comment, and we look forward to working out these issues.
Thank you very much, Rob. I do appreciate that feedback, and I've noted some of those concerns as well. And I will probably give you a phone call just to talk through in more detail some of those concerns and questions that I might have as well. And if necessary, make amendments to the committee sub to address some of those concerns. So thank you for the feedback and your candor this morning. And Madam Clerk, Antonio, do you have anything that you have to add to the bill? Or are you just along for the
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add that, Title 18 overall has been kind of a fair way of operating for the airport. And just, overall, this board bill, we just don't understand how this could really benefit the airport. It puts kind of constraints around the airport and the type of RFPs that we issue or solicitation for bids. We don't understand how this really would benefit this airport overall. So yeah, we just have a lot of concerns that, Rob just mentioned, and we would love to share more of those concerns with you. So I would welcome a phone call with you, Shane, yourself, and Rob can discuss it a little bit more. But yeah, this board bill kind of puts a lot of constraints in place that just wasn't there before. And as an airport, our job is to make sure that we're sufficiently run with the revenues and non-aeronautical revenues that we can attain from any kind of concession or revenue source.
Okay, thank you. I will make sure to loop you into that conversation as well. Madam Clerk, are there any other members of the public signed up to testify on Board Bill 25 committee substitute?
Yes, we have two online, and right now we have Dave Sweeney and Tim O'Connell.
Could we take the folks that are online first?
I have I believe it's a Mr. Aaron Barraza.
Yes, I'm here. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Excellent.
We need to see your
Mr.
face, Mr. Barraza. Could you turn your camera on?
Yes. Can you all see me now?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I want to speak in opposition to Board Bill 25. My name is Aaron Barraza. I'm the Senior Airport Partnerships Manager for Turo. Turo is a peer-to-peer car sharing company where vehicle owners, many of which are your constituents, share their personal vehicles with those looking to book a car. My role at Turo affords me the opportunity to work with airports across the country to establish permits that take into consideration the unique needs of each airport and the peer-to-peer car sharing industry. We've successfully negotiated over 150 airports across the country, including Kansas City and Springfield Branson. And I've had the pleasure of working with Lambert International on a permit that Turo has already signed and we believe to be a fair agreement. All of the 150 plus agreements I mentioned were negotiated directly with the airports, who have the authority to determine the operational specifics of those agreements. And none of those agreements equate Turo with a traditional rental car company or require Turo to fit within the confines of a traditional rental car permit, including shuttling to a rental car center or other location reserved for traditional rental car companies. That's because of the stark operational differences between the two models. For example, traditional rental car companies require the infrastructure to support a rental counter, employees, long-term storage for a large fleet of vehicles. None of those needs exist for peer-to-peer, and Turo key exchanges take up a fraction of the time that rental car transactions take. The board bill before you today would be the first of its kind and would eliminate the ability of the airport to determine those operational details and take these differences into consideration. The current proposed agreement for Turo's operations at Lambert does not equate to what some have suggested is unfair treatment. It simply takes into account the differences in operating structure between our industries. Should the operational realities of the airport or with traditional rental car companies change, we would not interfere in the rental car company's ability to negotiate agreements that reflect those realities. We look forward to the opportunity to work with the members of the committee to prioritize consumer choice and allow the airport to maintain its ability to directly negotiate the terms of these agreements. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and I appreciate the opportunity to address you all today.
Great. First of all, Mr. Barraza, did you provide your contact information to the clerk? No. Can you make sure that you put your email and phone number in the chat for the clerk to take note of?
Absolutely.
So that way we can follow up with you directly. But also, you mentioned an agreement that's in discussion with the airport. Can you share specifics about that agreement?
Sure. It was an agreement that was literally years in the making. A lot of back and forth negotiation with airport staff and Turo staff. The agreement has been signed by our president. It was introduced at one of the recent airport commission meetings. No action was taken on the agreement. But we look forward to seeing that agreement executed and put into place for Turo to be beginning to remit monthly reporting to the airport, and as well as remitting significant payments, we hope, to the airport and increase the airport's revenue.
I think we all would appreciate an increase to the airport's revenue. Can you share with me, just in terms of the operations of the application, does Turo know where individual cars are parked so that customers are able to pick them up?
Unfortunately, our application does not have that technology in place. Unlike TNCs, who are able to use a pin drop feature to clearly identify. I'm sure anyone who's used Uber and Lyft, you can even see the little car on a map making its way to your direction. Turo does not have that ability, at least not yet.
And so how is it communicated to the customer where they should be picking up a vehicle?
That communication takes place within the app between the host, who is the owner of the vehicle, and the guest, which is the party that is renting the vehicle.
And do the owners of the vehicle have a way of tracking where their vehicle is at any given time by the person who's renting their vehicle?
No, they don't have that ability.
And are there requirements on the part of the app to verify insurance on that vehicle when someone is renting it?
Absolutely.
How do you all verify the insurance?
So we the purchase of insurance is included. Well, let me back up a little bit. Turo, as a company, does provide an insurance policy to the airport once the vehicles are on airport property. Before the vehicles get to airport property, it's just the personal vehicle of your constituents. But once it gets to airport property for the purposes of an exchange, that's when Turo's insurance kicks in. Once the vehicle leaves the airport property, that's when the insurance that was chosen with the host and guest via the app during the reservation process kicks in.
Okay.
It's simply one of the steps that's part of the reservation process.
Great. I'm happy to follow up with you and have a more intentional conversation around the board bill as well. But I do appreciate your time this morning. I'm going to let any members of the committee ask questions if they have any. Alderman Oldenburg.
Chairman, can you come back to me last, please?
Sure. Alderman Narayan.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you so much. So this Turo has been operating on airport property for how long? Can you say that again?
Turo does not have an active agreement with the airport, so since we do not have an active agreement until it is executed, we don't operate on any airport if we don't have an agreement in place.
Okay, I had been told differently that you all had been operating on the airport property, but you're saying you haven't. So if I find that you have, what am I supposed to think about that?
There may very well be exchanges that have taken place
So the operations have been occurring because that's your entire business, is the exchanges between hosts and the rentals. Is that correct?
Turo hosts may have conducted exchanges on airport property, but we do not supply any sort of monthly report or financial remittance to the airport until we have an agreement in place.
Right, and that does seem like the business has been happening, but the city portion of managing, monitoring, benefiting from your business taking place on airport property has not been happening. I think that's an important distinction for a long time. And so the model does seem like an interesting one. I remember years ago, the conversations between the taxi commission and Uber and Lyft, very similar conversation really about what does it mean to rent what does it mean to rent or to use driving services, and there was always a lot of kind of keywords used to say how it wasn't the same thing, but at the end of the day, there's obviously a ton of similarities, and it's just a, a similar industry. So I guess I don't really have any questions if you're not going to answer about how people might use your business already on airport property. Okay, thank you.
Well, as I initially mentioned, we've been trying to get an agreement in place with the airport for literally years now.
Okay, I will be very interested to see that communication.
Alderman Oldenburg, do you have any further follow-up or questions?
Just a quick question. If the representative from Turo can explain sort of the composition of the operators. You mentioned and referenced a few times that they potentially could be constituents, and that may very well be. But it's been my understanding, seeing this in other markets, that it tends to sort of be large LLCs or fleet operated entities that are quite sophisticated, and need to go through the proper business licensing, and have set up sort of large fleet corporations, limited liability corporations. Do you happen to have any data around that kind of that breakdown of what the ownership composition is of those operators, those peers?
I don't have that data in front of me, so that's something that we can look into. But I can say that it's a mix. There's hosts on the app that are simply using an underutilized vehicle that they have to make some side money to pay their electric bill or help put their kids through school. And there's others who have dipped their toe in the water with Turo's platform and found success and have become entrepreneurs and decided to grow their business. And it's very exciting to see somebody become their own business owner and grow in a way that previously maybe not have been as possible.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having just received kind of not having just received, but not the ability to fully digest the committee sub, Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna wait for further questions after I have a chance to read so, and the airport director also is available. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. As I mentioned, not planning to take a vote on this. I do want to afford people the opportunity to digest the contents of the substitute. But appreciate your questions and your time towards reviewing this. And as I have also stated, I'm happy to follow up with representatives from the airport and others to continue to hear out any concerns that they might have, to try and address those to the best of my ability within either the committee substitute or subsequent changes. Madam Clerk, you mentioned there's another person online.
Yes, we have James Bangerser.
Good afternoon or morning. Can you all hear me?
Good morning. Yes, we can. Thank you.
Morning. I see that we're over 2 hours now, so I'll try and be brief. My name is James Bangerser. I'm senior counsel at Turo, so I work with Aaron. I work primarily on the legislative and policy side of things. In the interest of keeping it brief, I'll reiterate everything that Aaron said about our position and our concerns and our desire to ensure that the airport retains the authority and the flexibility it needs to effectively manage its operations, including the ability to permit peer-to-peer car sharing operators. I just wanted to give some additional context because it sounded like there were some questions to Aaron about the distinctions between the car sharing industry and the traditional legacy rental car industry. Those are distinct and separate industries. Missouri is actually joining more than 30 other states that have statutes that recognize and reiterate that distinction. That bill is currently awaiting signature by the governor. That also goes to the insurance question that was asked earlier. that bill, among other things, lays out some key consumer protection requirements. It ensures that there can be no trip that occurs via a car sharing platform that does not have insurance in place at all times. And it also very clearly and decisively distinguishes between the two industries. For example, it explicitly states in the definition of peer-to-peer car sharing that it does not include rental car or rental activity. So I just wanted to flag that for folks. I'm happy to answer any other questions or provide any other feedback on the way other states have regulated peer-to-peer car sharing. And just to, again, emphasize, as Aaron said, we have 150 permits nationwide, all of which reflect the unique operating realities of each airport, none of which impose rental car requirements on us, because as Aaron noted, we simply don't utilize airport infrastructure in the way that a legacy traditional rental car company would do so. And again, if that were to change for the legacy rental car companies, we certainly wouldn't stand in the way of St. Louis or any other airport coming up with a new permit that reflects those changed circumstances for traditional operators. So I will leave it there, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions of the committee of Mr. Bangus or Alderman Oldenburg?
No.
Alderman Narayan?
No questions.
Alderwoman Schweitzer?
Thank you. I understand that you're showing the rental industry and the car sharing industry as two different industries. I'll look for that bill in Missouri so I can understand it a little better. Looking at your website, the website link says car rental. The top of the page says car rental. Discover the Turo car rental marketplace, rental cars in St. Louis, Missouri. So I don't know if that's just to make it easier for people to understand, but it seems like, and there's 3 places just on the main page that says car rental. And then when you are at the airport and operating, it seems like your users may have to go use airport services like the airport shuttle bus to get to a parking garage, which is not something that the rental car companies are doing now. They have their own shuttles to their own locations as opposed to using what the airport offers to move their customers around. So I have just some interest on that with why you believe you're using less airport services rather than more airport services to conduct business, unless your customers or your host customers, I suppose probably be how you'd prefer I ask, don't have to use airport services that are not being paid for by your company. So I'm looking forward to reading the bill that you say is in front of the governor and just learning a little bit more about the industry and the difference. But it does sound like you all are painting yourself on your websites at least as a car rental service.
Yeah, we would be happy to follow up with you. Thank you for the question. I mean, the reality is we're all servants of Google. Let's put it that way. So search engine optimization is you go to Airbnb and you see hotel references there. We have to show up in search. It's as simple as that. And as far as the facilities at the airport go, you're absolutely right. And I will defer to Aaron and to our colleagues at the airport to discuss that in more detail. But unlike a rental car company, there's no permanent fleet storage in car sharing vehicles or at the airport for maybe a few hours at most. There's no permanent employees or any of the facilities needed to facilitate those employees. There's no gas or maintenance facilities, car washing, et cetera. So speaking, broadly, and I'll leave it to others to talk about St. Louis and Lambert specifically, that's what we mean when we talk about car sharing utilizing fewer airport resources.
Okay, even if our rental car companies aren't on airport property.
Again, with Lambert, I'll defer to Aaron and to Robert and Antonio on that.
I appreciate that. I really do look forward to learning more about this. I didn't know about Turo, to be quite honest with you, until this bill came before us. So always interested in learning about what's going on at our airport and who's who's using it. I do think we want a bustling airport that offers amenities that our customers want. And assuming that is you all, I'm interested in finding ways that we can all work together. I just want to make sure it's fair and that we're being upfront and honest about what the business is, what's going on, and how it's being used and how it's operating. So I appreciate any effort on all of our behalfs to work that way together. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
And I would add, James, if you haven't already, I asked Aaron to do the same, but if you could put phone number and email in the chat so that we can have that available in case we need to follow up with you, that would be great. And Aaron, I don't believe you put a phone number in there. The clerk said that you only put an email address, so if you could put a phone number, preferably a cell phone, because text message is the best way for me to communicate sometimes, because I'm in 2-hour-long meetings throughout the day.
Sure.
So,
Alderman, I don't know if I can clarify one thing for the Alderwoman.
Sure.
Just to say, the use of the shuttles and the airport parking shuttles, they're like any paying customer who uses, if they use Lot C and they use the Lot C shuttle, when the host or the vehicle customer, the car share customer leaves Lot C, they pay the full parking rate on that like anyone else.
Thank you for that clarification.
Rob or Aaron or James, any of the three of you, we've talked about this agreement that isn't actually executed at the airport, but we keep talking about how the revenue to the airport's really important. By virtue of being chair of this committee, I'm an ex officio member on the airport commission. We have not taken an action on this. The first time that I really heard about the agreement, I believe, was late last year. Aaron mentioned that this has been in conversation for a long time. I think he might have said several years. When did conversations around this start out at the airport in terms of putting an agreement in place?
Yeah, I can answer that. And, Aaron's characterization is several years is correct. We have been working at this. There's been various members of the Turo staff that have cycled through and that we've worked on agreements with. And we've had concerns about, around percentage fees that are paid, as it can be 8%, 10%. Can the Terminal 2 garage be used? Where are these shuttles going to go? Whose shuttles are they going to use? There was another car share company called Avail for a while, and they got involved in discussions as well. So it's taken some time, yes. And then we're happy that we got something together now, and we want to move it forward. And it's for us, it's the revenue, and we want to get that going.
Okay. Happy to have a follow-up conversation around that, but I think if the revenue has been so important, I'm failing to understand how it could take several years to get to this point. But I will continue to have the conversation and see what we can do to address any concerns. Is there anyone else online who has signed up to testify? Okay.
Yes, we have a Mr. Don, I believe it's pronounced Levy or Levy?
Lefebvre.
Lefebvre?
Lefebvre?
Yep. Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Great. Thank you so much.
Actually, I failed to do this. Generally, we ask where folks reside when they're testifying. Aaron and James, are either of you city residents or live in the St. Louis metropolitan area?
No.
I do not. I'm actually at the same conference as Robert and Antonio.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. Mr. Lefebvre, if you could continue, but can you let us know where you reside if you're in the St. Louis area?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Cohn. No, I'm not in the St. Louis area. I'm actually in Alexandria, Virginia today. But Chairman Cohn, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of Board Bill number 25. My name is Don Lefebvre. I'm the Executive Director of the American Car Rental Association, or ACRA. ACRA is the national trade association representing the car rental industry, including major national brands, regional operators, and independent companies. Our members collectively operate more than 2 million vehicles across the country, including Missouri. This ordinance takes an important and overdue step to ensure that all rental activity at St. Louis Lambert International Airport, whether conducted by traditional rental car companies or peer-to-peer platforms, is treated equally under the law. This bill ensures that any company accessing airport property to conduct rentals must follow the same rules and meet the same obligations. Board Bill 25 promotes fairness. This bill ensures that airports can collect appropriate fees from all entities offering rental services, regardless of business model, based on equivalent access to the airport. Importantly, this legislation requires that all operators into the same types of agreement pay their fair share and comply with safety and operational standards that protect customers and preserve the integrity of airport operations. I urge support for Board Bill 25 as a balanced, fair, and fiscally responsible measure. Thank you.
Okay, and I will ask you to do the same as I have with Mr. Bangenser and Barraza. Could you please include your phone number and email address in the chat for the clerk to take note? And with that, I'll entertain any questions from the committee. Alderman Oldenburg.
No more at this time. Thanks, Chair.
Alderman Narayan.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
I appreciate you coming and testifying, and I do hope that you put your information in the chat. I'd be interested in talking to you more, but no questions.
Wonderful. Madam Clerk, any further online testimonial?
We have none.
Okay. Are there folks that are signed up that are here in the room?
We have Mr. David Sweeney and Tim O'Connell.
Gentlemen, are we doing a Laurel and the Harvey Act, or?
I'll go first.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
With the face man.
Proceed.
My name's Dave Sweeney. I'm here with Louis Price. I live in the city, and our offices are in the city of St. Louis. I'm here on behalf of my client, ACRA, who just spoke. Thank you for putting the committee sub before the committee. I'll be brief. I know we're going to be here again next week, and I'm glad we're having these discussions and to keep this moving. I really want to thank Mr. Strong, who said that Chapter 18 has been working for an airport. I totally agree, and that's why we're modifying it to continue to have it work and have regulations for all parties under Chapter 18 in the code. I think that's very important and transparent, and I'm excited to keep this going and to get the revenue that we're missing now and to do it this way. So, just here for any other questions. Thank you, Chairman Cohn.
Hi there, Mr. Chairman. Tim O'Connell. I'm here with Brian Cave, Leighton Paisner on behalf of our client, Enterprise Mobility. Wanted to thank you and also the President for sponsoring this legislation to have an even playing field. And I also want to thank the airport team, who I understood gave comments back to the President's office, and you know, I think that ended up being resulting in a committee substitute that helped clarify some things and improved the legislation. So, following up on a couple of comments we've had today, and we look forward to having a fuller discussion and hearing next week when the airport director is able to attend. Mr. Salerno made a mention about the fees. It is not the intention of this legislation to interfere with or remove or reduce the minimum guarantees that traditional rental car companies have as part of the concession agreements. And I thought I'd just provide a little bit of context about how agreements have gone till now. There's two types of agreements that we have at the airport. One are concession agreements. The other are ground transportation agreements. The concession agreements are required to go through either a bid process or an RFP process. The ground transportation agreements, which is the agreement that Turo has been pushing to try to get approval for, does not require a bid process, does not require an RFP process. One of the things that's key and is really at stake here, and what has made the industry decide that it's really kind of unfair, is walkable access, being able to just walk right across and get a rental car. So if an agreement like the one that's been proposed is approved, that will have been done without any sort of bid, without any sort of opportunity for any other rental car company to have that kind of access. That's an issue. That's what this legislation is here to try to address. Another thing I'll mention, Mr. Salerno made mention of the provision of requiring these operators to have placards, and that would run afoul of how some of these folks do business, which is to apparently leave their keys in the car. That's the first I'd heard about that. I wasn't familiar that that was something that Turo hosts did. I'll just submit that to you all to think about whether that's something that should be allowed on airport property. I was surprised to hear about it. But as far as that being a good rationale to remove it as a requirement from this bill, it didn't sound like a great rationale or a great policy, but I'll leave it to you guys to discuss. The other thing that I'll mention is that the existing concession agreements that all the rental car companies have, you know, it's a quote concession agreement, but the one thing that they get to do is to run shuttles to specific preferred places along the curb. And then all of the operations and all the transactions are done off airport, counters are off airport, the cars are kept off airport, all that thing is off airport property. So again, we think the bill works towards two things. One, fairness. Two, helping support airport revenue, because in fact that fee requirement, it's designed to actually increase revenue that the city is collecting. It doesn't, you know, it actually sets a minimum. It says everything, it actually should put an upward pressure on fees collected at the airport. So those are our goals. We look forward to the continued discussion and look forward to the hearing next week.
Any further comments? Madam Clerk, is there any further testimony on Board Bill 25?
We have none.
Okay. Did Mr. Lefebvre put his contact info in? He did. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. And we will continue to have this discussion. Rob and Antonio, you'll be hearing from me very soon. And I know the airport director unfortunately had another engagement this morning that was an emergency drill that she had to be present for. So, but she has committed to getting her feedback to me as well before we have our next hearing. So I look forward to continuing those conversations. Mr. Barraza and Mr. Bangasser, I believe we have your emails and phone numbers as well. So I might and take any further questions from the committee and send those to you as well, and would appreciate a prompt follow-up to the best of your ability. With that, we have no other items pending before the committee at this time. As I mentioned, we're not going to take a vote on Board Bill 25 committee substitute until a later meeting. I am hoping that we will have something scheduled for early to mid next week to continue that conversation. It is a holiday week, so we've got a bit of a truncated schedule, and we're heading into our end of session, our last meeting before summer recess. I shouldn't say end of session, before we go down for summer recess, July 11th. So we've got many calendars to juggle here at the Board of Aldermen, but we'll try to keep everyone abreast and fully aware as best we can, and look forward to continuing that dialogue. Anyway, All members were present today. Madam Clerk, please make note of that. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the first. Is there a second, or do we
Second.
stay here longer?
Previous roll.
All right. It's been moved by the Alderman from the first, seconded by the Alderman from the second ward that we adjourn. There's been a request for previous roll. Hearing no objection, we stand adjourned.
Thank you, sir.